Welcome, ladies and gentlemen. I am 7Ross6, and I am back with another video. Finally, I know it's been a while, but I have been kind of busy with school and stuff like that, making it kind of difficult for me to make videos. But I kind of wanted to make sort of a discussion video, because of something that recently came out. So you guys can probably see the game in the background, which is Yu-Gi-Oh! Legacy of the Duelist, which didn't recently come out. It recently had both an update for its PS4 and Xbox versions, and we finally actually got a PC version, which is pretty cool for me, specifically because I don't own either a PS4 nor an Xbox, which is kind of sucky, but still. So I was finally able to consistently start playing Legacy of the Duelist, and I do have a couple of hours on it. I've been enjoying it a lot. I haven't actually bought a shit ton of packs yet. But yeah. But I wanted to make a video about this game, specifically because what you guys have to understand is that Yu-Gi-Oh! Is probably one of those things that has specifically molded a big part of my life, right? A lot of what I am today has been through Yu-Gi-Oh! I've met a lot of my friends through Yu-Gi-Oh! I've played a lot of Yu-Gi-Oh! Back when I was a little kid. I still remember the day that I got like my first starter deck, and I was playing the game, and I've always had a really soft spot for Yu-Gi-Oh! In my heart. It's one of the reasons that I'm literally never changing like the profile picture of the 7Draws6 channel, specifically because it's the Supreme King from Yu-Gi-Oh! It's just, favorite character ever. But I kind of wanted to talk about this game because specifically I kind of want to give my opinion on it, and specifically talk about whether or not this is a game that you should pick up or could pick up. And specifically a couple of the, I would say, problems with the game. I'm not saying this is a bad game immediately. I really enjoy it. I've been playing this. I've been enjoying this. Even if I have like a couple of bad moments, like I'll just retry the duel that I'm playing and it's like, oh my god, I still enjoy it. I can see so many of the references into the actual story, since I've watched every anime episode ever. Like I know what happens in specific duels, and that allows me a lot of insight into this game specifically, and it makes me really enjoy it. But I kind of want to talk about it, and specifically I'm going to talk about what this game represents, because what Konami has stated on this game specifically is that they wanted this to be a game for several groups of Yu-Gi-Oh! Players, right? And I'm going to divide the Yu-Gi-Oh! Community pretty much into three groups, right? And I'm going to look at the values of this game for each of those three groups. And the three groups, it's not because you're in one group that you can't be in two. Like, you can be in two groups, and one could even say you could be in all three at the same time. I personally think I'm kind of in all three at the same time. You can make an argument for that. So the three groups, for those of you wondering, are the casual players, the competitive players, and just purely the anime lovers. Now, why am I specifically mentioning anime lovers? Why isn't it just casual and competitive? Because anime lovers is a very important part of Yu-Gi-Oh! I think pretty much, I'm not going to say everybody, but a very large part of the Yu-Gi-Oh! Community, I think, got into this game through the anime. There's probably people who got in through like friends playing the game and then just stayed there, and who didn't get into the anime. But even then, you have very likely at one point been confronted with the anime. But not everybody stays because of the anime. Some people might just hate the anime, stuff like that. So I'm gonna start, of course, with the easiest group. What are the values of Legacy of the Duelist for the anime group? Because let's be honest, one big advantage of Legacy of the Duelist is very likely just this nostalgia factor, right? Legacy of the Duelist is a great game for people who love the anime. I am literally living proof. One of the biggest things that I love about this thing is how I see the anime be redeveloped. Sure, true anime lovers or true Yu-Gi-Oh anime lovers, I should say, not anime lovers in general, but true Yu-Gi-Oh anime lovers are going to notice, what pieces are missing. Of course, there are several story arcs that aren't told. For example, maybe kind of spoiler alert, I guess. But for example, if you look at the Shadow Rider arc of Yu-Gi-Oh! GX, only 5 of the Shadow Riders are actually in the game. You don't actually get to duel against Don Zalug and the Dark Scorpions, and you don't get to duel against the Pharaoh, whose name I have now slightly forgotten. The 5th Shadow Rider. Right, but all the other 5 are there. Right, all of the other 5 Shadow Riders are there, and you recognize them, and you recognize several of the cards they use. And even and if you stop and think about it, you can very easily see why those 2 specific duels aren't in there. Those 2 specific duelists don't actually have a very big impact on the story. Nitroud has an impact because Vaticus, Camula took like 3 duels to take out. Tanya took 2 and comes back later in the anime. Titan refreshes Atticus's memories, and then Amnail has his entire arc in there too, with the Philosopher's Stone at one point. Whereas then Don Zalug and the Pharaoh, both of them don't actually have a very big impact on the story. Which makes sense. It makes sense at that point that those 2 characters would be skipped specifically. So honestly, for the anime lovers, this game is great because you can relive a lot of the famous duels. If your favorite ones aren't in there, there's a very big possibility that they are going to be brought out as like DLCs. Like, for example, for me, like season 3 and 4 of Yu-Gi-Oh! GX were like the seasons for me. I loved those seasons. And like season 4 was never in the original game, right? But then all of a sudden I saw like the GX Lost Duels DLC, which contained Jaden versus Darkness and then Jaden versus Yugi, and that was like an instant buy for me just because it's an awesome. Those are like 2 duels that I was like, oh my god, this is awesome. And also, they were parts from pretty much my favorite season of Yu-Gi-Oh! GX. In the meantime, I'm going to drink a little bit of coffee because I'm thirsty. So, for anime lovers, the game's great. Casual players, then. Casual players, I think this game fits really well. Better than previous installments of Yu-Gi-Oh! Games, I would even in some ways admit. Specifically, what you have to understand is casual players are, in my book, people who don't have any... A pure casual player to me is someone who doesn't follow the meta, who doesn't follow the game, who pretty much, he has a couple of cards and he wants to play with them, right? This is usually also someone who's going to think that healing cards and damage dealing cards are great, right? Who's going to put Okazi in his deck, who's going to put Dying Kido the Cure Master in his deck, and who is not going to put Tremendous Fire in his deck because it deals 1,000 damage to your opponent, but it also deals 500 to yourself, and those kinds of people. As I've said, I still kind of see myself as a casual player a little bit because I'm not. I've had like a very short period where I was very competitively invested into Yu-Gi-Oh! But right now I'm far more to the casual side because I just don't play in tournaments anymore because I don't follow the meta as closely as I used to anymore. And that changes your opinion of the game a little bit. Now, for casual players, this game is great, and this is a great step into Yu-Gi-Oh! Right? If you're actually planning on playing Yu-Gi-Oh!, I think this is a great step in. I don't think you need to let someone step into the game by letting them play Cosmo or letting them play BA, or if you want to go to the actual meta, things like, well, the last meta that I remember, because I haven't paid attention to it in a while, like the last meta that I remember, for example, ABC coming out, like... It's not something that I would immediately say like, oh hey, let's give this to a casual player and just let him fuck around with it. That's something that I wouldn't do. Honestly, the games are very good for that. I specifically played things like Nightmare Troubadour in the past, Spirit Caller, for those of you guys who might remember these, the World Championship Series. I've played a lot of those as well. And apart from perhaps like from all the ones I've played, I think Stardust Accelerator, like World Championship 2009, was probably like the one that was really not casual friendly, because it immediately, like most of the duelists you faced outside of the story mode perhaps, and even in the story mode kind of, were extremely difficult duelists. You had like a zombie duelist who immediately just went like turn one zombie master into something else, and then he just destroyed you from there. And especially with the cards that you had at the time, and if you didn't know how to play the game properly, or if you did not know how to build your deck properly, you weren't going to get through that game. For Legacy of the Duelist, that's not a problem because you don't have to build your deck. Right? You can use the story decks, and of course those contain a lot of bad cards. I think it's like Give and Take that Yusei plays at one point, which is literally like the trap card that literally says, okay, summon a monster to your opponent's side of the field and give one of your monsters a level. Like, I've played several duels with Yusei's deck now. I haven't used that card once because it's not good. It's not a good card. Like, it's good if you can summon Acid Golem, get into your graveyard, and then give it to your opponent, but that's literally where it stops. And I don't actually even know if that works because it's not a level that thing has. Well, maybe it works. I actually don't know the ruling on that. Not the point, though. The thing is, it's very casual friendly, right? Because you can just go into a casual game against AI, and whether or not you win or lose, you're going to learn something about the game. And you can kind of see, of course, one of the big problems is, and this is just mostly with these video games, is that the pace of the game is very misleading, right? The actual meta right now is like 3 turns and the game's done. And this is a little bit misleading, I will admit, for casual players, but even then, I feel like it's still a good instep into the game, right? Especially like you have those tutorials on how to synchro summon, how to pendulum summon, how to exceed summon, how to fusion summon. For some weird reason, nobody ever pays attention to ritual summoning because, I guess, fuck ritual summon. They didn't even get a fucking dimension in our... I just, like, what? What is wrong with you people? Why do you hate ritual summoning so much? But still, like, that's, I think that's a really good thing for casual players. Casual players, I think, get a lot of good stuff out of these games. And then that's something that I felt with pretty much every single Yu-Gi-Oh game thus far, apart from, as I mentioned, Stardust Accelerator. Even the Tag Force games, in my opinion, are pretty decent in that. Yeah, so that's my opinion on it, at least. However, and now we get to kind of the difficult part of this video, which is, I've been talking about this and I've been saying this is great, this is, great game, but I said that I was also going to be talking about the weaknesses of this game. And those weaknesses, in my opinion, become apparent once one gets to the competitive branch of players. This game offers one thing to competitive players, and that's draft. And honestly, even that isn't great, right? So, I remember a while back, I don't know if Konami still does this, but I remember a while back that Konami made a YCS where the entire pre-top cut part of the YCS, so the Swiss part pretty much, was in draft play, right? So you would open X amount of packs of Battle Pack 2, I think it was War of the Giants at that point, and you would make a deck with that, and then that was the Swiss part. And if you went well enough with the Swiss part, you were able to play an actual deck in like the top cut. Now, if Konami still does that, and honestly there are very likely hobby shops that still do these, then this is a decent way to practice, right? You can kind of test out which decks are good, which cards are good, which cards do I need to draft for. So that's one way that sealed play can still be good. However, there's a problem. Like draft play where you just get 5, 10 card packs and then you immediately make a deck with that. Okay, that works perfectly. However, the draft, I think that's sealed actually. The sealed play, for sealed play, it's a lot worse, right? And that's specifically because sealed play, like the way that works is pretty much you get a pack of 15 cards, you pick a card, and then you so-called the remaining 4 cards so-called go to the next player, and then you get another pack of 15 cards, you pick a card out of that, and then you send the remaining, or you get a pack of 14 cards, those 14, you pick one, you give the remaining 13 to the next player, and yeah, you have like this cycle, right? And because Legacy of the Duelist does not require internet to play, unless you want to go online, right? You don't actually have an actual player sitting there picking the remaining cards from the packs. Meaning it's a PC that picks them. And I've tried draft one time. Trust me, they do not always pick the best cards. And to me, that's kind of like weird. Because of course that means that you're going to get better drafts than you would in actual competitive play. I mean, like, I don't know if the PC would do this, but let's imagine that like you're with 3 people and you're playing sealed, right? And your first pack contains 2 Pot of Greeds. You know, just in theory, and you take one of those Pot of Greeds, you shuffle the next 14 cards, and the other 13 are like crap cards. And then you go 2 rotations further, you get your pack again, and the Pot of Greed is still there, then there's something wrong with the system. I'm not saying the system does that because I haven't tested that, but also I don't know if you can actually have 2 times the exact same card in the exact same pack. You probably can't, but still. There are, in my opinion, limitations to what an AI can do compared to what a player can do. So there's that. Now, this is an entire discussion about, how sealed play is decent and how it gives content to the competitive player, but there's a problem. The rest of the game is nowhere near good for competitive players. This is something that just end all be all, that's it, right? There is no reason for a competitive player to play Legacy of the Duelist, and that's kind of sad, right? Now, why is there no reason for a competitive player to play this game? There's a couple of reasons. One, there's Dev Pro. Easiest reason ever. There's Dev Pro, which pretty much means Dev Pro is free. Legacy of the Duelist is not. So you can say like, oh yeah, it's only $20. Yeah, but like if you can get something for free that's just as good or even better, you're going to go for something that's free, just saying. You're not going to spend $20. Like, it could be $1, it could be $3. You're not going to spend money on it if it can be gotten for free. 2, Dev Pro immediately unlocks every single card. Now, you're going to be saying, okay, but like, isn't that the beauty of Legacy of the Duelist? You have to collect them? Yes, but for testing purposes, collecting cards is not what you want to be doing. Right? It's the same thing like if you go look at Pokemon, where people hack Pokemon into the games just so they have their competitive versions. That's so they can immediately start practicing with these Pokemon rather than having to go through the entire process of breeding them. It's the same thing. You don't want to spend your time getting every single card in the game. Right? And that's a problem. Right, that's point 2. And then point 3, and this is probably the biggest point of them all, not every card is in this game. If I'm not mistaken, A, Assault Core, B, Buster Drake, and C, Crush Wyvern aren't in this game, to give an example. So you're not playing with the up-to-date metagame. So even if the first 2 points weren't a problem, you wouldn't be able to use this really to practice for competitive play. So this is not a good platform for competitive players. And of course, you can make the argument, well, maybe the game wasn't created for competitive players. But that's bullshit. right? You guys have to understand that where your biggest money comes from, right? Where does most of your money come from? Not from the casuals, not from people who like your anime, from competitive players. Competitive players are the ones that are going to keep investing in your game because they want to keep getting something out of that game. And sadly enough, this game does not cater to those people, right? And that's, I think, one of the biggest problems that Legacy of the Duelist right now has. It does not in any way cater to competitive play. It caters to me because I love the anime. You know, like I hate I keep saying I hate Zexal, but still I've watched the entirety of Zexal, and there's a very big possibility I'm going to rewatch Zexal at one point just because it's Yu-Gi-Oh anime. Because I love Yu-Gi-Oh anime, that's just the way it works. So this game has a lot of value in it for me. But the competitive players, the people who spend most of their money on your game, on your cards, those people aren't interested in this game. Now, I'm going to cut this video off here, but I am planning on uploading a second video as well, which is going to kind of talk about an idea that I've had for Legacy of the Duelist specifically, which is going to be talking about, I'm not necessarily going to say a solution, but it's going to be talking about something, well, kind of a tryout solution that I want Legacy of the Duelist to maybe implement, or maybe Konami to at least think about. So yeah. With that, ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to cut off this first video, so I hope you did enjoy. If you did, please, you can leave a comment, by all means. I'm open to discussion on this topic. If you think that I'm talking out of my ass, then by all means, tell me. In a very friendly manner, of course, because you're all friendly people, let's be honest about this. And other than that, ladies and gentlemen, this has been 7 Draws to 6. Until next time.